So we've all seen that Sylvanas' return had a little clutch moment and an emotional moment with her family, and while it is indicated that she's going to be a relevant character for the Forsaken and Quel'Thalas based on everything we know, it does appear that her actual role is going to be a lot more important than we initially believed. She has crazy insider information that she's getting to the bottom of in the Shadowlands side of conspiracy, and it's likely that we're going to see a lot more of her, especially now as we know that Xal'atath had reached the world's soul, which will likely trigger the Titan return. As the Titans return in a desperate attempt to salvage everything, it's likely that their entire Shadowlands mechanism is going to completely collapse, and that is where Sylvanas will come in. So why did Sylvanas truly return? What is her main goal, and what is she really planning? With Midnight out, there is so much to catch up to, and Rested XP currently has the most up-to-date and robust leveling odds. I'm talking both factions, all the routes, farming spots, achievements, dailies, you name it. You can get everything done so much more efficiently for a one-time fee. They've got everything for hardcore and classic as well, and best of all, if you use my link below, you will get 10% off your order immediately. So check out Rested XP. So as we can expect it, as they had foreshadowed for the past year, Sylvanas had returned, but in my opinion, I wasn't expecting her to return to be this big right out of the gate. It does appear that they're really foreshadowing her as a very important character in the entire saga. Throughout the years, I mean, we did get a few hints of Sylvanas. We had that one vision of her talking to the Forsaken, and we recently had that visit in the Maw at the end of the War Within, where we talked to her, we discovered Nathanos. Personally, I was expecting in the near future something similar to that questline just related to Quel'Thalas, and then more importance later down the line, but looks like they just started out with her major role right at the gate. What a lot of people miss though is that she appears to be working on something very significant for the main story. This isn't just kind of a Blood Elven reunion type scene where she returns to her people and then just tags on as like a random character. They really seem to be building her up to do more. So of course one of the big questions is whether she's going to return as the leader of the Forsaken, and that at this point is actually surprisingly difficult to answer. I mean, just a few months ago I wouldn't have imagined that it ever happened, but with Midnight we've learned that there are still Sylvanas loyalists out there, and her people didn't abandon her as much as we initially thought. I mean, originally Sylvanas was much more than a leader. She was something like a mother to all the Forsaken. She was like worshipped by them. I mean, literally every Forsaken you talk to mentioned the Dark Lady. And then when she did what she did in BFA and Shadowlands, the undead became disillusioned by her, but it might not be as bad as we originally thought. As I just mentioned, in Dragonfight we got that bit of a throwback in her vision where she appeared and did the entire speech that even during the manipulation of the jailer she did genuinely care for the Forsaken, and now that manipulation is actually going to clear out, so we are going to get a completely different context. However, since she was gone in the Shadowlands and she was sentenced to her prison in the Maw, we had a time skip and a whole lot of things happened, and in her stead the Undead Council was formed and the Forsaken kinda moved on. I mean, we had the entire new identity no longer being the Forsaken, which is kind of a black pill when you think about it. I mean, they're just undead Lordaeron people now, and they kind of moved out of that entire edgy Forsaken Sylvanas leads us in the dark thing they had going on for the first decade. So in that sense, I don't think Sylvanas is ever coming back as the sole ruler of the Forsaken, as the Dark Lady and their mother, but there is a possibility of her coming back as how Troll kinda came back. I mean, Troll was in a way the father of the modern Horde. I mean, he's literally single-handedly responsible for even moving the orcs to Kalimdor and creating the Horde, but he did leave the role and he was gone for a few years and then he returned. He's back now, he's around, but he isn't really the main leader, the main figure. I think depending on what happens with Sylvanas, something like that could be happening. However, just because the Forsaken took over their Lordaeron identity, I could see Sylvanas returning to Quel'Thalas, as before the entire Forsaken ordeal, she was a Ranger General and one of the lead High Elven people. I could see her creating a role where she returns to Quel'Thalas and the Forsaken in some sort of a strange symbiosis. However, the real thing I want to discuss in this video is what is her actual plan, because based on what they introduced, the return of Sylvanas is actually a lot more important than her just being some new character figure for the High Elves and the Forsaken. Looks like she's going to play a really important role in the main storyline. You already know this, so I'm not going to repeat myself a million times, but the Shadowlands are a lie. She was the personal assistant of the jailer. Now she was sending the souls to them all, and she realized the scam firsthand. She probably has the most insider information knowledge of everyone that we know, and she realized that the real afterlife exists and that the Shadowlands are too ordered, implying that they were created by the Titans, which pretty much plays into the entire World Soul saga and the Titan prison. The real question is, why did she return right now and not a year before or later? And it's not just to farm aura, to come in to save us against Xal'atath in a clutch situation. I think she realized that the entire Void invasion of Azeroth, Xal'atath, Old Gods, Titans returning, and the Shadowlands is actually all connected. They're all just segments of the exact same conspiracy that is holding us over Azeroth, and she realized that in order to figure out the Shadowlands, she also has to deal with Xal'atath, because Xal'atath is also completely aware of this matter. Now, in the cinematic, she did say that she hasn't returned to the world of the living just yet, and she's still serving her sentence, but she did promise to get to the bottom of the Shadowlands, and I think her return is going to come in the most important moment, which is really going to be the true culmination of this whole saga, and that is going to be the midnight finale. Short of the actual finale of the saga, the midnight finale is set out to be huge, as it's going to reveal the return of the Titans and pretty much everything else. By the time the last Titan is announced, I think we are going to have a pretty good grasp on everything that is going on. Right now, based on data mine information and the current progression that we know, and it's going to be like 12.1 is going to just very likely be Amani stuff. After that, once we're finished, we're going to have BlizzCon on September, and that will announce the last Titan, and very likely 12.2. So it was just confirmed in 12.0.5 that Xal'atath's invasion is about to begin, and that while we think we defeated her, she actually accomplished her plan, and that was to use the Darkwell to channel herself and her Void army into the core of the planet, the World Soul of Azeroth, and that is where the real stuff is going to happen. I mean, we can only really speculate what at this point. We don't have concrete information, but it's likely that this event will trigger the return of the Titans, potentially Sargeras, potentially the Zod, and a whole lot of other really big things. I'm guessing amongst these events, the return of Sylvanas will also happen. Almost certainly, the coming of the Titans is going to reveal what they had done to the Shadowlands, especially as we go further into Northrend and the Frozen Throne, which we know is the #1 Shadowlands spot on Azeroth. Here, I think Sylvanas will play a really big role. So my guess right now is that Sylvanas will actually be a big and important character for the whole saga. She'll probably show up once again in Midnight Finale when all these big things happen, but it seems like they're going to have her be related to the Frozen Throne and all like the last Titan stuff. This could involve the Atreus and the entire Shadowlands mechanism collapsing, which is going to be huge, as we're going to probably break Ardenweald, learn what is the true connection to the Emerald Dream, the World Trees, and pretty much everything we currently know. So the real deal is that Sylvanas isn't just returning as like a major character, just like nostalgia baiting or a figure for the High Elves and the Forsaken, but she seems to actually be in on the entire main storyline. Now, after that happens, we might see something happening, and it's possible that she could play a role in 12.1.7, which indicates something happening with the Forsaken, but I think the true potential of Sylvanas in this saga is only going to come to fruition in The Last Titan, and this entire mechanism breaking and the conspiracy finally being over. Thanks for watching. Check out why the players are so dissatisfied with this Elven reunion by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to my brand new Witcher lore channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!